Let's talk about Burnout. No, not the awesome video game where you crash your car for points, but the actual thing where you get really tired of doing the work over and over, week in and week out. I'm feeling a little of this today, which is why I'm shooting this video. I'm a little tired. I'm a little cranky. I've got a cold, which usually makes me tired and cranky. And this morning was kind of venting to my wife about kind of feeling this kind of needing a reset, feeling a little burnout, a little angsty about stuff. And she said, you should probably do a video about that. That would probably be helpful for people. And she's right. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about burnout, what to do about it, and 3 questions you can ask yourself to help you navigate it. This isn't, here's the cure for burnout, but more so, here's what I do when I get in that place of feeling beat down and what I do to get out of it. Now, whether you are at the beginning of your journey and you haven't started creating, or maybe you've been creating for a while, either way, burnout is inevitable. Not that I'm saying you're going to work yourself to death. I do not work 80-hour weeks. But just doing anything for a length of time, which is what it takes to get momentum going in this business, is going to lead to seasons of feeling like, all right, I got to do this again. I've done this every week for a year, and I'm not seeing huge results that I want. I'm starting to feel discouraged. That's what this video is about. If you stick around until the end, I have a gift for you. It's a game plan that I developed of how I run my business. We'll talk about that later. But the first thing I want to say is if you're feeling burnout, tired, frustrated, cranky, annoyed, it's normal. That's the first kind of big thing that I want to make sure that you and I get is it's normal. Creating something is risky because it might not work. You're putting yourself out there, so you become a target for some people. We talked about that recently. There will be negative comments at some point. And more than that, you put yourself out to hearing crickets in return. What do I mean crickets? Have you ever created something, put it out there, and then just no one really notices? I did this once. One of the first albums I created when I moved back to Nashville, had a bunch of musician friends who were making music and doing creative things. I made an album. I sent it out to send a download link to all the tracks from the album to a list of, I want to say it was probably at least 10 music friends, not just random buddies, but like people who made music. And not a one of them replied. Maybe one. But for the most part, I heard crickets. I got nothing back in return. Am I mad at them about it? Maybe a little bit. But no, they were busy, right? I was asking them to take an hour out of their day to listen to my music. That's a big ask. And maybe they listened to it. Maybe they even liked it. I don't know. I've had several specific examples in my mind of when I've gone out of my way to engage with someone and I've gotten nothing in return. That stings, right? So whether that's your situation or you've just been creating and, sorry, I don't know if you hear the birds chirping, but I've got the window open because it's just delightful. So birds will be accompanying me today. When you are a creative person, when you do creative work, you will inevitably hit roadblocks. You will inevitably wake up one morning and just not feel like doing it. And if you're anything like me, the fact that you don't feel like doing it makes you think that something's wrong. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like all of those voices tend to come out. I just want to say and remind both you and myself that this is normal. This is a normal part of the process. Just like if you study economics, you know that like markets rise and fall. There's a very almost predictable pattern to the way, if you look at like just the way the U.S. economy has worked over the last couple hundred years, it follows a pretty similar path. Things get good, and then people overextend themselves and get in too much debt, and then things kind of take a dip, and then they get good, and they take a dip. And that cycle happens, I think, usually around 4 times, and there's a bigger dip, like a recession or a depression that happens. It's kind of wild how predictable it is. But that's the same with creating music. You'll have seasons where you're on fire. You can't help but just make great stuff and people are loving it and things are firing on all cylinders. And then there'll be other seasons where it's just not working or you're just not feeling it. And that's real normal, just so you know. If you agree with that statement, leave a comment, leave a like, let me know. I want to hear your story. All right, so here are the 3 questions that we're going to ask ourselves when we get into this place. Really, when I get into any place where I'm feeling funky, you know what I mean? That like I'm a little cranky. If somebody looks at me the wrong way, I'm going to have a hard time with it. Just those moments where I'm, maybe triggered is the right word. I'm in my feels, and I'm feeling like things aren't working. Here are 3 questions that I ask myself. The first question is, what's true? What's true right now? So I got to take into account feelings as well as facts. Because what I feel, it's true that I feel that way, but the reality might be very different. So but I don't want to just neglect my feelings altogether. I want to know, okay, I'm feeling insecure, angry, frustrated, and a little ashamed that XYZ happened. Those are feelings based on something that happened. Where it goes kind of wonky and where it kind of turns sideways is when you feel things like you say, I am a failure. I feel like a loser. Like those things, they're not super helpful, and they're also not necessarily true. Even if I do something that fails, I am not a failure. I did something that failed. The thing failed. I failed the verb. I'm not a failure, the noun. And while some people may hear that and say, yeah, of course, other people might really resonate with, because when you fail, you have a hard time viewing the failure as a thing out here to just be observed versus internalizing it and saying that I am the failure. And it's easy for me to say, but I can tell you I have been there and I still go there regularly. It's a part of my wiring. If something fails, I internalize it first, and I've got to kind of pull it out, separate the two, and say, here's the fact. Here's what's true. I ran a promotion and it bombed. Here's what's true. I feel terrible about that. I feel embarrassed about that. I feel like a fraud about that. But what's true is I just did this thing and it didn't work. And then you may find, if you dig deeper, Jim Collins calls these the brutal facts of reality. If you are willing to look at the brutal facts, generally I'll just determine, oh, well, here's 3 things I did in that promotion, and that's contributed to why it didn't work very well, or 3 things I neglected to do that I really know I should have done that would have made it work a lot better. Or here are my conjecture as to what happened, because you never know for sure the why behind the results that you get. Facing the brutal facts is important. So the question of what is true means, first of all, what am I feeling? We got to at least acknowledge what's going on there, or we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to be stuck there in a big cloud of feeling it. So let's acknowledge what we're feeling, let's feel what we're feeling, but then also what's true outside of ourselves? What's the reality? And then a big piece of this is what's true, the reality piece. I need to make sure I'm talking about the good and the bad. Because if I'm only talking about the bad, that's not really reality either. Because reality is there's a lot of good things going on in your life. You are breathing. I can't breathe super well because I have a cold, but you get the idea. So there's always something to be grateful for. I've gone through seasons of my life where I start every day with a gratitude list, which is such a cliche thing to do, but it's helpful, especially in seasons where I'm not feeling very grateful. There's always something to be thankful for. We're very good as humans at ignoring the good stuff that's there and only focusing on the bad. Just like I could get 100 comments that say, you changed my life, you saved my life, but my brain's going to hone in on the one that says, you suck. Because that's just, I don't know, that's just the way I'm wired, and I imagine a lot of people are the same. So sometimes we have to force ourselves to remember the things that we're thankful for. Not to go down the religious rabbit hole, but in the Bible, a lot of times, especially if you read like the Psalms, they'll say, remember all the good things that the Lord has done for you. Don't forget all of his benefits, because it's easy to, in the moment of some sort of thing is happening that's bad, to assume that everything's bad and to forget all the good things in your life. So when you're asking what's true and you've gone through how you feel, and now you're talking about what's actually true, like what are the facts, got to be sure to include both the good and the bad, the things that are making you pissed off and the things that make you feel grateful. We do this thing at the dinner table with my kids. We do high-low. It's just one good thing, one bad thing from your day. And the middle schooler is real good at the low part. It's like pulling teeth with the high part. So it's something you have to practice. You have to learn to see the good in things as well. I'm not saying pretend that, I accidentally chopped off my finger, but it's really going to teach me character. No, not that. I'm not talking about like blindly ignoring bad things and somehow manufacturing a reason why it's good, but I'm talking about looking at the bigger picture. Like in that situation, like I'm really glad I didn't chop off all 4 fingers, I guess. Or bigger picture, I'm really thankful for my family, right? Even though I'm thankful for the medical team, I didn't lose more than that finger, whatever. There are things to be thankful for without like being fake about it. All right, second question to ask yourself is, against what am I measuring? Because a lot of times, if you're discontent, if you're feeling like you're not measuring up, there's a standard to which you're measuring yourself. And that standard, a lot of times, is someone else. Either an ideal of where you just kind of think you should be, which is generally an ideal that you can never achieve. So you're in this constant state of reaching for something that's not achievable or is not specific enough to be achievable. The idea of, I want more. Well, more isn't specific. So there's always going to, like, I could have 100 of something, but then someone else has 200. So that's more. And then I could have 1,000,000, but then there's still more, right? You can always add more to it. So more is a terrible goal. But bigger picture, if you're comparing yourself to others or to some other ideal, it's a losing situation always. You've probably heard the saying that comparison is the thief of joy, and it's true. So should we just stop measuring altogether? No, I don't think the answer is to just become zen and never measure anything, but I do think the answer is I measure myself against myself. That's the goal, is to say, where am I compared to where I was a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, a month ago? So in business terms, what am I doing subscriber-wise? Where are my views at on YouTube? Where are my subscribers? Where are my opt-ins? Where are the conversion rates on my sales pages? Things like that. Are they moving in the right direction? Now, sometimes the answer might be no, but more often than not, if I'm comparing myself to a previous version of myself, I can find areas that I'm improving, things that are working. It's hard to see the growth up close, right? I remember when I left for college, my little brother was in 4th grade, and when I moved away after college, he was getting into high school, and I remember I saw him maybe at Christmas, and then I came back and saw him in the summer, and he had grown like a foot. He was a different person. To my family, they were aware that he had grown, but it wasn't such a stark difference because they saw him every day. But to me, having only seen him, 8 months prior and then seeing him again a foot taller, freaked me out. That's kind of the idea here. You're so close to what you're doing, you're looking at the day-to-day, hour-to-hour stats of what's going on in your business, that it's difficult for you to see the bigger picture. Hey, what am I even moving in the right direction? That's why it's really important. I encourage people that I coach, I encourage you to take measurements once a month. I do it on the first of the month, and I track all kind of the vital stats. So this won't be an exhaustive list, but things like subscriber count on YouTube, subscriber count in email, number of opt-ins, by specific lead magnet, the things like revenue, how many orders, what products, which ones sold, and there's a few more, but like the kind of big, not every single statistic you can measure, but the big ones, the ones that matter. And I can look and I can see trends among all of them. When my views are up, my opt-ins are up. And then if I look closer, I can say, oh yeah, those are some videos where I really put a lot of effort into it. I did a lot of research. I rejected a lot of video ideas to hone in on that one great video idea, and here are all the results from that. So there's always something to learn, more so when you compare to yourself than to others. Yes, of course, you can't get rid of comparison to others, and there's a lot you can learn from other people who are ahead of you or who are in the same world as you. You can always learn from people, but ultimately the only way to measure your progress is against yourself. If I'm measuring my height as a 6-year-old against my buddy's height, and he's a foot taller than me, it doesn't do me much good. But if I measure my height as a 6-year-old against my height as a 5-year-old, I can say, oh, look, I grew a couple inches. I am growing. Turns out I'm not stuck. You know what I mean? And sometimes the measurement might reveal that things are moving in the wrong direction. So it's not always a happy-go-lucky thing, but that's good information to know as well. I'm a big fan, especially right now. I've been in a season of watching a lot of Gordon Ramsay videos. If you're not familiar, I don't know how, he's everywhere, but he's a famous chef, and he does a lot of TV shows and competitions where he will go and like there's one called Kitchen Nightmares. I don't think it airs anymore. No, it does. There's a new season. But he'll go into these failing restaurants, and they'll say, we don't know what's wrong. We don't have any customers. We don't know what the problem is. And then he'll eat their food, and he'll say, your food's terrible. And they'll say, no way it's terrible. The customers love it. And he'll say, what customers? And they'll say, good point. So they're so blinded by the fact that they're not willing to say that maybe my food's not good, that they don't realize that all the other numbers that are indicating that their food's not good, such as revenue being down, they're losing money every month, they don't have a lot of people coming in the door. Those are just business stats, right? You and I have the same stats. Thankfully, we don't have the overhead of a full restaurant. We just have a YouTube channel, right? We have minimal overhead, which is fantastic. So like our Number of opt-ins is the equivalent of how many people walk into the restaurant. Number of sales is equivalent to how many people are actually sitting down and eating, and what are they ordering? What do they like? How many refunds are we getting? Is how many times people send their dishes back to the kitchen. It's all valuable information. And if you ignore the information, then of course you're not going to make any improvements. You're not going to get any actual wisdom out of that. So part of that, what am I measuring against? First of all, let's not measure against everyone else. And second of all, let's make sure we're measuring what we're doing so we can see where we're improving and be thankful for that, and then see where we're not improving and figure out a way to fix that. If you don't know where it's broken, you can't fix it, right? Which is why I love this Gordon Ramsay thing. They think the problem is their staff or the people in the town just don't understand them, when the reality is much simpler. Their food sucks. But almost every time the food was bad. There's like one that I can think of where the food was fine, but the owners were crazy, and that was why people weren't coming there. Anyway, third question you want to ask yourself is, what's the message that I'm getting from this feeling that I have, from feeling burnout? This is a little different from the last one. We're talking about like, what are we measuring in our business, in our channel, whatever we're feeling funky about. But in bigger picture, if I'm feeling burnt out, is this my body, my brain, my psyche trying to give me a message? I wrote a song a few years ago, and it keeps coming back in my head because it was one of those, I had a lyric to the song that felt like it just came to me, like it came through me, and I don't really take credit for it, as weird as that sounds. But there's a verse of a song that says, you're looking in the mirror, and all you see is terror, so you isolate. And then this next line, but what if all that fear is a compass meant to steer you to something great? And that idea of when I get afraid of something, I want to go hide and isolate and withdraw from the thing. But what if the thing I'm afraid of is actually, that's my brain telling me you need to pursue that. Now, yes, I know some people don't like that because they say, well, I'm afraid of jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. You telling me I should go do that? No, use your brain. I'm talking about things that you're afraid of from a insecurity standpoint, especially things that you know you're good at or could be great at, and the things you feel that deep in your bones that I need to be moving in that direction. I was made to move in that direction, but I'm not because I'm scared. It becomes a compass. It's pointing at the exact thing that you need to go towards. 2 weeks ago, I kind of hurt my back working out. I was doing a lift. It's called a snatch, where you hold the weight up like this, and I had to hold it. And it tweaked something in my middle back in the traps. And the next day I could barely move my neck. And the whole week it was just really painful and just annoying. I discovered if I get like a baseball or they say lacrosse ball, all I have is a baseball, inside a long tube sock and put it back there and lean against the wall, there was a spot where that muscle was really tender. And if I pushed in on that spot and massaged that spot for a few minutes, the whole muscle would relax and the pain would almost all go away. It would eventually come back, so I had to do that process over and over and do a lot of stretching and things like that. But there was just a spot of that muscle that would tense up, and the answer was to push in on the thing that hurt until it relaxed. So in the same way, the thing that I'm feeling burnt out about, it's probably a message. They say that if you've ever experienced depression, and I have, and I know how terrible it can be, they say that the depression isn't the issue. The depression is a signal that there is an issue. That makes sense? The depression itself is your brain signaling that something's not right. Now, it can be a chemical imbalance, right? That's a thing. But it can be, there are things in your life that need to change, and you're not changing them. And therefore, the depression comes in to kind of almost take you out of the game so that you don't feel or get hurt or feel that pain. So I know we're getting real like therapy speak here. But if you're feeling burnout, my guess is there's a message there for you. For me, I'll tell you what mine is, because there's not fair for me to tell you to figure out yours if I don't show you mine. So I'm feeling like, even though last week's video was all about lazy content, I'm feeling a little convicted that I'm doing lazy content, especially with Home Studio Corner, where the last several series of videos is this. It's me thinking through and scripting a video, but then it's mainly just me talking to the camera. And I'm wondering if that's too much of just talking head, and if I'm doing that because that's easier to do than setting up multiple cameras, doing something like recording an instrument, doing something creative, making some music versus just talking about making music. And I feel it even now. I feel kind of guilty sharing that with you because I know the answer is I am a creative person. I was made to create, and right now, I just got done creating that songwriting course. That was really fulfilling, but now I feel like I'm kind of running on empty. running on empty, and the content I'm making for Home Studio Corner is kind of just, it's okay. And I want to get back to making something that's good, right? Of course, I want to get the views and the subscribers and the opt-ins and all that business stuff, but ultimately, I want to be more fulfilled creatively. I want to do some things that take maybe some more time to do, take more effort to do, but feel a lot more creatively fulfilling. So that's where I'm at. That's the thing. I'm actually getting ready to take a week off. I'm going to have some time to just relax, decompress, but also start kind of thinking through coming back with some energy and saying, okay, let me get myself some more time for these videos and let me engage, allow myself to do some more ambitious things in some of this content, things that I know will be fulfilling for me creatively, but also will be really valuable for the person on the other end. I'm not saying talking head videos can't be valuable. Sure, this is an example of one. I imagine this channel, just in case you're wondering, the ultimate goal of this channel is to help people grow their business. And I'm not going to help you grow your business with a little 2-minute video, right? Most likely. I want this to be more like you and I are sitting down and we're talking about a specific topic. And then ultimately, the plan for this channel and this business is to grow it into having offerings, right? Courses, perhaps memberships, and certainly for at least a season, coaching, where I'm coaching you one-on-one. But the kind of people who are going to be into something like that are the kind of people who'll sit down and watch this, 20-plus minute video about burnout because they're deep into that sense of yearning for wisdom about a topic that they're wanting to dive into, or they're in and they would love to connect with someone else over that. So it's different. This is not the kind of content I make here isn't the exact same as what I would make at Home Studio Corner, which is for musicians. So content for musicians should probably have some music involved occasionally. That's what I'm feeling today. So I'm also feeling that as far as the compass goes, I'm feeling that about content, but I'm also feeling I'm ready for something new. My compass is telling me, all right, you finished the songwriting course. It was really challenging, difficult, but really fulfilling. And now I'm seeing the comments from customers who bought it, hundreds of people, and they're saying, this is amazing. This is great. This is changing the game for me. So it's very fulfilling. And I'm very much like when I played football in high school, we would win a game on Friday night. We would huddle up with the coach at the end, and he would say, great job tonight. Let's get ready for next Friday night. And I would say, can we celebrate a little longer before getting back to work? But I recognize that that's part of being a creative person, an entrepreneurial person, a driven person, is you do a thing, and then when you're done, I need something else to come in. I need something else to focus on, something else creative, something big. And I don't know what that is. It could be a new course. It could be diving more into coaching here with you, perhaps. If you want, email me, joe@joegilder.biz, if you want to find out more. But that's where my head is right now. What's the next kind of big creative project outside of the regular weekly content, which I also want to improve? What's the next big project that I want to dive into? I love diving into things because I feel like that was what I was made to do. So hopefully these questions, again, let's review what's true against what are you measuring, and what's the message that this burnout is trying to send to you. If you can regularly ask those questions, and even you can do it quickly, just pull out pocket notebook and just answer it with a couple of words. Sometimes if you're just feeling funky and you got 5 minutes, that may be all that it takes to kind of get you back on track, or maybe you need to take a day or a week to really dive into it. But these are questions that will help you kind of start to understand what's happening underneath and then figuring out a game plan moving forward. Speaking of game plans, if you haven't downloaded my free game plan guide, it's literally a 1-page diagram of the system that I use to run my business. It's called the game plan because it stands for give, ask, measure, which we just talked about, and edit. I give a full explanation. You can download the diagram itself, and it comes with, I believe, a 45-minute masterclass walking you through the diagram, the business model, so you can start applying that to your own business. Go check that out for free at joegilder.biz/game. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so you don't miss out on a future video. And if you want to watch another video from me, YouTube thinks you'll like this one right here. Check it out.